Of RBI's policy announcement, repo rate hiked by 25 BPS to 6.25%, reverse repo rate hiked by 25 basis points to 6%. We have our business managing editor, business Rajeev Dubey, who's with us live this afternoon. Rajeev, according to you, what are the big takeaways of this latest announcement by the RBI?
You know, as far as the consumers are concerned, as far as the corporates are concerned, the biggest impact, of course, is going to be of the 6.25%, the 0.25% hike in the repo rate, which is going to increase the cost of borrowing. As far as the companies are concerned, it's going to impact them in their borrowing cost and their cost of operations. As far as the consumers are concerned, it's going to be the impact on the car loans, home loans, as well as personal loans that they have been taking. So, you know, back at the envelope calculation says that if you had a 20 lakh loan pending with the banks, you would be required to pay about 6,000 to 7,000 rupees more. If your interest rate goes up from 8.4% to something like 8.65%, 0.25% hike if it gets transmitted directly onto the consumer. So that's the kind of a difference that will be borne by the consumer. As far as home loans are concerned, you know, interest rates on car loans are even higher, and interest rates on personal loans are higher than even car loans. So the impact will be progressively higher as far as housing loans, car loans and personal loans are concerned.
Right, Rajeev, you're basically saying it's more bad news for the common man who's already been reeling under high fuel prices and high food product prices against the backdrop of that farmer strike.
So, you know, this is really a reversal of the interest rate trend that RBI had been showing for the past few years. First hike since January of 2014. It basically tells us that interest rates are now starting to go up rather than being stable or going down. Interest rates, as predicted by most economists this year, are likely to rise by 50 basis points in this fiscal. So while everybody was expecting this hike to actually happen in August, the very fact that it happens in June, it actually indicates that RBI believes that inflation is going to be worse than has been expected because of the fuel price hike, the diesel price hike, petrol price hike, and the impact on that in the economy. So this is a way to curtail the impact of inflation in the economy.
Right, but Rajeev, wouldn't you call it a domino effect which has been unleashed by the government's decision to impose high excise duty on fuel products?
Sorry, I didn't understand. I didn't hear this.
Isn't this a domino effect that's been triggered by the high excise tax that the government has imposed on fuel and petroleum products?
Yes, so excise has been stagnant, but government has actually not reduced excise, and it's almost like 19.5 rupees, 19.6 rupees for every liter of fuel, especially diesel and petrol. And so that is one of the reasons why the consumer is bearing the cost of what we pay on our petrol and diesel. It's almost 50% of the price that the consumer pays on petrol and diesel is all taxes between state and center. And that because the fact that the government, either at the state level or at the center, has refused to reduce those taxes, is one of the reasons why inflation will be high, and so why RBI may have had to act on this.
Right, and Rajeev, we are also saying that the limit for a home loan under the Pradhan Mantri Grah Awas Yojana has also been increased to 35 lakhs. What does that mean?
So, you know, that is actually good for the consumer, but the government was anyway bearing an interest cost of about 2% on that loan. So that the loan the size increase is very good for the consumer because he's going to be able to take a higher loan. But the interest cost of about 2% is already being borne by the government. It's just that 0.25% hike will also have to be borne by the consumer even under this scheme.
All right, Rajeev, stay on with us. We're also being joined by Akash Jindal, an economist who's with us on the phone line. Mr. Jindal, your big takeaways from this policy announcement by the RBI?
See, now this would definitely have an impact, because what happens is interest rate is very, very crucial for the customer. Now, this would have an impact, and I think somewhere down the line, the way Indian economy is going, so this would have a negative impact, because otherwise Indian economy was on the growth path. So I think, yes, it would impact.
Right, and Mr. Jindal, what do you think has brought the situation to such a pass that we're having to pay more for all consumer products, we're having to pay more for our home loans? Do you think that it was the government's decision to increase excise duty? We do know that excise duty on petroleum products has been increased by 111% since 2014. Do you think that is what has triggered this entire crisis?
See, I have always maintained that, and on various occasions and various forums of your channel, I have always maintained that the excise hike by the government on petrol and diesel is unjustifiable. Because what the government did was, when crude oil prices were down, crude oil prices touched as low as $27 per barrel, the government, rather than properly and fully passing on the benefit to the consumer, it kept on enhancing the excise. So the entire excise enhancement has impacted the customer, and it has added to inflation. I can understand that when it was $27 per barrel, people didn't feel the pinch because crude oil prices were lower. But now people have felt the pinch, and it has impacted them. Petrol, diesel prices have a cascading as well as direct impact on inflation, particularly diesel prices. All the consumable, anything and everything which we consume and eat, ultimately travels on diesel. So diesel prices, high excise on diesel means directly you can relate it with higher inflation. So I have been telling the government right from the day one to reduce excise on diesel and petrol, because higher excise on diesel means issues for our agriculturists, brother. Plus, mainly it would increase the inflation, and inflation, let me tell you, is the mother of all economic problems in India. Inflation is the base problem of all other problems. So I think the government shouldn't have hiked the excise. Rather, when the crude oil prices increase beyond $70 per barrel,
right,
I've been requesting the government, they should have lowered the excise so that the inflation wouldn't have impacted the customer. As far as the government's resources are concerned, I have many a times suggested the government that there are other ways and means through which you can mobilize resources for growth, for infrastructure, for development, for welfare. Excise is not the only way, but the government has been concentrating more on excise from diesel and petrol, and definitely that has impacted the inflation. So somewhere down the line, I do not support our government the way they have increased the excise, and the way they have particularly not decreased the excise when crude oil international prices went beyond $70 per barrel.